Good evening and welcome to the Diamond News Desk at 8 p.m. We bring you stories latest on our website, diamondtvzambia.com. You can also follow us on Diamond TV Zambia on X and Diamond TV Online on Facebook. Do stay tuned for the headlines. Your headlines this evening. Showdown looms as South African court hears Lungu family bid this Friday to hold body's return for state funeral. Shock in Mulobezi, man arrested for alleged sex act with neighbor's donkey. And later on, Alliance for Community Action slams UPND's 4-year record, demands Public Order Act changes ahead of the 2026 polls. A pleasure that you could join us this evening on the Diamond News Desk at 8. My name is Tapiwa Ngoma with the details. Our first story this evening takes us all the way to South Africa, where the Pretoria High Court has set Friday, 5th August 2025, to hear Lungu family's application for permission to appeal the order to repatriate his body to Zambia for a state funeral. According to a court notice, all parties have been directed to file documents, including possible heads of argument, on or before Wednesday, August 13, 2025 by 15 hours. On August 8, 2025, the Zambian government won a legal battle against the Lungu family, securing an order for the body to be handed over to Zambian authorities for a state funeral following his death on 5th June 2025. However, dissatisfied with the ruling, the family applied for a leave to appeal, halting the repatriation process. This means the order cannot be implemented until the appeals process is concluded. If the appeals fails, Mr. Lungu's body will be repatriated. If it proceeds, his remains will not be sent to Zambia.
The legal battle over the burial site of former President Edgar Lungu, who died on June 5, 2025 in Pretoria, South Africa, may be far from over. Although the Pretoria High Court on Friday, August 8, 2025, delivered a unanimous judgment ordering the repatriation of Mr. Lungu's body following a legal suit by Zambia's Attorney General Mulilo Kavesha, the family rejected the ruling and filed an application seeking permission to appeal the decision. In their application, the Lungu family raised 17 grounds of appeal, including that the lower court erred in granting relief that in their view disregards the alleged president's express wishes by allowing President Hakainde Hichilema to preside over his funeral and burial. The application has stalled the repatriation process. However, if it is dismissed this Friday, August 15, 2025, Mr. Lungu's body will be returned to Zambia for a state funeral. The family insists on holding a private funeral without President Hichilema presiding. They argue that Mr. Lungu was mistreated after losing the 2021 election and again after announcing his return to active politics, a bid that was blocked by the Constitutional Court's ruling that he could not contest future elections, having already served 2 terms from 2015 to 2016 and from 2016 to 2021. For the Zambian government, the issue is one of public interest and precedent. Attorney General Mulilo Kavesha maintains that Mr. Lungu deserves a dignified send-off in his home country, which he says should be in the form of a state funeral. In a recent media appearance, Mr. Kavesha challenged the Lungu family to explain publicly why they do not want President Hichilema near the casket if a state funeral is granted. He questioned what would happen if the president approached the casket and who had informed the family that he intended to do so. Until the court makes its ruling, Mr. Lungu's burial arrangements remain in limbo. Darius Chonye, Diamond News.
Still on court cases, the Lusaka High Court has set December 9th, 2025 as Judgment Day in a matter where a 23-year-old student, Doris Ndumba, is jointly charged with 3 others in connection with the murder of a veterinary doctor, Evans Mwape Mwengwe. In this matter, Doris Ndumba, Kenani Jere, Keegan Zulu, and Josat Tembo are accused of killing Dr. Mwengwe after he offered them a lift from Bimas in Kabwe to Lusaka between June 10th and 12th, 2021 in Lusaka. Allegations they have since denied. They are also charged with aggravated robbery of his ML320 Mercedes-Benz, which was later recovered in Chilenje. Dr. Mwengwe's partially burnt body was discovered in the Kabangwe area.
4 years since the day of the alleged murder, the Lusaka High Court has set December 9th, 2025 for judgment in a case where a 23-year-old student and 3 businessmen are charged with the murder of veterinary doctor Evans Mwape Mwengwe. Doris Ndumba, Kenan Jere, Keegan Zulu, and Josat Tembo are accused of killing Dr. Mwengwe after he offered them a lift from Bimas in Kabwe to Lusaka between June 10th and 12th, 2021 in Lusaka. They are also charged with aggravated robbery for going away with Dr. Mwengwe's ML320 Mercedes-Benz motor vehicle after allegedly killing him. Police later recovered his vehicle at a house in Chilenje after discovering Dr. Mwengwe's partially charred body in Kawangwe area. The accused, however, denied these allegations and were placed on trial. During defense, a police officer who took part in the scene reconstruction testified that AIT and MTN call records placed Ms. Ndumba, one of the accused, in Lusaka on the day in question. He told the court his supervisor once suggested making Ms. Ndumba a state witness before she was jointly charged. Another witness, Dina Kunda, 32, an account assistant at the Ministry of Education, told the court she has known one of the accused, Ndumba, for 8 years and lived with her in Kabwe. On 8th June 2021, Ms. Kunda said the accused lady came to her room, borrowed her phone to try to reach her father, and later decided to travel to Lusaka to see a family doctor. Ms. Kunda testified she escorted the lady to Kabwe's New Market bus station, saw her board on a blue special bound for Lusaka, and received a call from her that afternoon from Kulima Tower in Lusaka that she had reached. She told the court she was certain Ms. Ndumba was in Lusaka on June 10th, 2025. Judge Ruth Chibabuka would deliver her verdict on December 9th, 2025. In November 2021, before Judge Joshua Banda, the Director of Public Prosecutions, had entered the nolle prosequa in this case, discharging all the 4 accused persons. Few minutes after the state entered the nolle prosequa in the matter, all the accused persons were rearrested after the court warned that a discharge is not an acquittal, restarting the trial, which has now reached the end. Best Jere, reporting for Diamond News.
Police in Mulobezi district of Western Province have arrested a man for allegedly engaging in bestiality. The incident occurred on 8th August 2025 around 02:45 at Old Police Camp, where 66-year-old Fatima Muyunda reportedly found a well-known local resident identified as Kriston Wendo having sexual intercourse with her donkey in the Crow, causing the animal's bladder to protrude. We have more details in this report.
In a bizarre incident, residents of Mulobezi district in Western Province were left in shock after a 66-year-old woman, Fatima Muyunda of Old Police Camp, reported finding a well-known local resident, Kriston Wendo, engaged in sexual intercourse with her donkey in the crowd during the early hours of the 8th of August 2025.
Brief facts of the matter were that the complainant, Madam Muyunda, woke up in the morning at about 02:45 hours to check on her donkeys at the Crow, where she found the alleged Kriston Wendo having sex with her donkey. Immediately, she alerted other people, and at about 6 hours on the same date, the matter was reported at Mulobezi Police Post, where a docket was opened. The suspect, upon realizing that he was seen, fled the scene, and around 7 hours or 8 hours, he was picked up by police and detained in custody.
Meanwhile, in Nalikwanda constituency, 61-year-old Ndelwa Sibote of Liomba village in Chief Litungi's chiefdom died instantly after allegedly being struck on the head with a log by his son, 31-year-old Situmbeko Sibote, on 1st August 2025.
Now, brief facts of the matter were that on the 1st of August 2025, around 20 hours, Mr. Sibote Ndelwa, the now deceased, was at his house with his wife and his son, Situmbeko Sibote, the now accused person. As they were at home, the accused ordered his father to buy him new sandals. The father responded that he had no money to buy the demanded sandals. The late left him and went to his chicken coop to check on his chickens. The now deceased followed him behind with a wooden stick and hit him on the head, and he fell to the ground. His wife and his daughter, identified as Kamungo Sibote, went to check on him and found him lying on the ground in an unconscious state. He was bleeding from the mouth, nostrils, and ears.
The Western Province Commanding Officer David Chileshe has further stated that both offenders are in police custody and will appear before court soon. For Diamond News, Christine Musole.
4 years after Zambians voted for the United Party for National Development UPND into power, the Alliance for Community Action ACA has given a mixed assessment of the government's performance, praising strides in maintaining law and order, but criticizing the lack of reform to the Public Order Act. ACA Programs Manager Jimmy Maliseni says while it is undeniable the UPND has upheld law and order, reforming the Public Order Act remains critical as the country heads into the 2026 general elections. Responding to the concerns, Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security Jack Mwimbu has acknowledged the criticism but maintains that Zambia now enjoys a conducive environment for both citizens and investors. Mr. Mwimbu has assured the public and stakeholders that as the nation approaches 2026, the political playing field will be level, ensuring no one is disadvantaged.
Years ago today, Zambians queued in their thousands, braving the long lines and the August sun to cast the ballots that ushered in the UPND government. It was an election that promised change, economic revival, job creation, reduced cost of living, and a new chapter of transparency in governance. But 4 years on, the question remains, have those promises been delivered?
Alliance for Community Action Programs Manager notes that the UPND government has made strides in maintaining law and order, creating an environment where citizens can speak more freely without fear of political violence. He says, this is a commendable shift from past years. However, the ACA is also critical of the Public Order Act, arguing that despite promises of reform, nothing has happened.
We still have the Public Order Act remaining, and going into 2026 when many political players will need to assemble their people and sell themselves, the current piece of legislation is not a good one, so we don't understand as an organization why the public gatherings bill has not been improved and enacted into law. We've also seen the government renegade on their promises to attend to the cybersecurity and cyber crimes legal framework. They've not done very well in that regard. I know there's a famous quote they are using now, Kwenyu, but when it comes to constitution, no Kwenyu, cybersecurity, no Kwenyu, cyber crimes, no Kwenyu. In fact, whatever the opposite of Kwenyu is, that's what they've done in that regard.
Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security Jack Mwimbu is one of the ministers serving under the UPND. He says he is aware of the concerns by the civil society organization.
The delay has been occasioned by the civil society organizations themselves. Immediately after the bill that was promulgated by themselves and ourselves, they made further amendments to that bill, which amendments we have considered. I'm happy to report that we are now ready to submit the bill to Cabinet for approval and thereafter submit it to Parliament. I'm aware of the concerns.
He boasts of the strides made over the 4 years.
If there is a breakdown of law and order in any country, you cannot entice foreign direct investment. You cannot entice local investment. For investors who fear that their investment will not be protected. We, as the government of the UPND, have achieved that. As a result of the peaceful environment that is occurring in the country, we have seen massive direct investment coming into the country. And you may have also heard that tourist arrivals have reached 2.4 million by July this year. We are hopeful and we are being assured by the tourist players in this country that will reach 3 million tourist arrivals. I'm proud to state that Zambia has been voted as one of the safest tourist destinations in Africa.
As the UPND enters the 5th year of its mandate, the alliance says Zambians should continue to hold leaders accountable, reminding them that change is not just about political power, but about delivering the freedoms and opportunities promised at the ballot box.
Today is not just a date on the calendar. It's a moment for reflection. The people who placed their trust in the ballot box in 2021 are asking, is the Zambia we live in today closer to the one we were promised? These plus more questions will be answered in 2026. Victoria Kayeye Yambani, Diamond News.
Thank you, Victoria, for that report. What we're doing now is getting into the weather, and after that, we give you the Diamond Insight to dive deeper into one of these stories that is making headlines on the news desk. After that, we will have the business news update after the break, and later on, I will be back to give you more stories that are on the news desk this evening. I'll see you soon.
This is your Diamond Insight for tonight on gold sales to government by small-scale miners. The Mine Workers Union of Zambia's proposal for small-scale miners to sell gold to government in the same way farmers sell maize to the Food Reserve Agency is an interesting one. At face value, it could help formalize a sector plagued by smuggling, middlemen, exploitation, and loss of national revenue. But the idea cannot be lifted wholesale from agriculture without addressing the structural realities of artisanal mining. First, the legality of the many small-scale mining operations remain murky. Some miners operate without licenses, while others hold exploration permits but not production rights. Before any centralized buying system is implemented, government must ensure that gold entering state vaults comes from licensed operations that meet environmental and labor standards. Without this, the state risks legitimizing illicit mining and undermining the rule of law. Government, the mining model used by artisanal miners, often relies on unsafe methods and, in some instances, child labor, a concern repeatedly flagged by civil society and international bodies. If a government buying scheme is to be ethical and sustainable, it must include strict compliance and checks and monitoring mechanisms to ensure that no gold purchased is the product of hazardous or exploitative practices. The Bank of Zambia, which already oversees official gold purchases for reserves, has previously stressed the need for traceability and formalization in the sector. Expanding gold procurement to exclude small-scale miners could complement the bank's strategic reserves policy, but only if the process ensures competitive pricing, transparency, and security. Finally, the Food Reserve Agency analogy has limits. Gold is not a staple commodity. It is a globally traded, high-value resource whose price is set by international markets. Any state-run buying program must therefore be commercially viable, avoid distorting market incentives, and be protective from the inefficiencies and political interference that have at times hampered FRA operations. This is not to dismiss MUZ's suggestion. On the contrary, it is a conversation worth having, but one that must start with legal clarity, ethical safeguards, and robust market structures. Otherwise, what is intended as a tool for empowerment could inadvertently entrench illegality and undermine both the mining sector and Zambia's reputation on the global stage.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Business News Update on the Diamond News Desk at 8. Here are the top stories. ZCCMIH hands over 91 million kwacha dividend to Treasury. And Zambian government and Africa Continental Free Trade Area call for inclusive fishing sector. These are some of the stories we have for you today, this evening. But also, we'll take a look at the money markets and some commodity prices. All this coming up tonight in business. Let's now get into the details of our business news stories for today. ZCCMIH Investment Holdings has handed over 91 million kwacha dividend check to the Treasury following a profit of 529 million kwacha for the 2024 financial year. Speaking during the handover ceremony in Lusaka on Tuesday, ZCCMIH Board Chairperson Festo Musonda says the company's ability to declare dividends to its shareholders reflects its sustained resilience and profitability over the years. Mr. Musonda has further reviewed that ZCCMIH has introduced a royalty revenue stream to optimize value creation and ensure predictable returns for the company. Receiving the check, Minister of Finance and National Planning Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane says a growing global demand for copper, driven by electrification, renewable energy, and technological advancements, positions ZCCMIH's copper investment as a key leveler for Zambia's economic prosperity. Here are the details.
Promise that will come much more bigger way next year. Thank you.
For the 10th year in a row, ZCCM Investment Holdings has handed over a dividend check to the Ministry of Finance and National Planning, this time worth 91 million kwacha. The ministry holds a 17.4% stake in ZCCMIH on behalf of the government of the Republic of Zambia. Shareholders approved a total dividend of approximately 529 million kwacha for the 2024 financial year, with last year's payment to the ministry standing at just 41 million kwacha. Speaking at the handover ceremony, ZCCMIH chairperson Festo Musonda says the company's ability to declare dividends year after year is proof of its resilience and consistent profitability.
We are handing over this dividend check today as part of our efforts to return value to our shareholders based on ZCCM financial performance. The Minister of Finance, as you well know, is a significant shareholder with 17.4% stake in ZCCM on behalf of the government of the Republic of Zambia. The ZCCMI shareholders approved a total dividend of approximately 529 million for the 2024 financial year end during our 21st annual general meeting, which was held on 18th July 2025. The Minister of Finance's share of this amount is 91 million kwacha. Last year, we made the dividend payment of 41 million kwacha to the Minister of Finance for the financial year ending 2023. The check we are presenting today marks the 10th consecutive year that ZCCMIH is paying a dividend to the Minister of Finance. The dividends declared for the 2024 financial year bring the total dividends paid to all ZCCMIH shareholders since 2015 to over 2.2 billion kwacha.
Receiving the check, Minister of Finance and National Planning Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane has congratulated ZCCMIH, adding that its role in driving economic growth through strategic investments cannot be overemphasized.
If the major shareholders of that company declared dividends, in certain years they made profit, but they decided that no dividend would be declared and the profits would be plowed back in the business. Now, for us as minority shareholders in those companies, it means that that will be a year when there's no cash coming to us. This is now when we decided and said, we're not seeing properly. For us, we prefer a different model whereby whatever happens, ZCCMIH receives cash dividends, because that's what we need. ZCCMIH can decide on its own, outside the shareholding with whatever company we are. ZCCMIH can decide what to do with the money, whether to declare dividends, they're doing now, whether to invest into a subsidiary or whatever, open a new mine. That's up to ZCCM to do. So that model is now showing the benefits, and I can say with certainty that going in the future, that model will be able to deliver more and more cash for most of the time for us, which is positive.
With another strong performance, ZCCM Investment Holdings says it remains committed to delivering value to its shareholders and to Zambia's economic growth. Ray Chumumba for Diamond News.
And now, the Zambian government says the country's fishing sector is facing significant challenges, including limited infrastructure to support fish trade and law compliance with regulations such as the continued use of destructive fishing methods. Speaking during the National Fisheries and Fish Feed Stakeholders Forum in Lusaka on Tuesday, Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock Assistant Fisheries Director Bumwai Mbewe says the country's strength lies in its emerging entrepreneurial culture, supported by an enabling environment and increased aquaculture fish production. Meanwhile, African Continental Free Trade Area AFCFTA Director for the Private Sector Unit, Temba Kumalo, says ensuring women and youth are not only participants but also leaders in transforming is key to driving inclusive industrialization and regional value chain integration.
Africa's $22 billion annual fish market is projected to nearly double by 2030. But despite the vast potential, the economic benefits remain uneven, often bypassing the young men and women who make up 70% of the sector's workforce. It is for this reason that the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock, in collaboration with the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat and cooperating partners, has convened a two-day National Fisheries and Fish Feed Stakeholders Forum in Lusaka. Assistant Aquaculture Director Mbamwai Mbewe has outlined some of the key challenges facing Zambia's fishing sector.
While we appreciate these promising areas, we also face notable challenges, which include limited infrastructure to enhance fish trade, low compliance to regulations such as using destructive fishing methods and gears, undeveloped market linkages where Trademark Africa and MasterCard Foundation strongly come in, climate-related threats and constrained access to finance for small-scale actors, particularly women and youths who remain underrepresented in decision-making and value chain leadership. However, Zambia's strengths lie in its emerging entrepreneurial culture, backed by an enabling environment and increasing aquaculture fish production, committed governance, and growing regional and international interest in sustainable fisheries and aquaculture development.
And AFCFTA Director for the Private Sector Unit, Temba Kumalo, has stressed that ensuring women and youth are not just participants but leaders is vital for inclusive industrialization and stronger regional value chains.
So that we can be able to help contribute in the fight around poverty, unemployment, and inequality in the continent. So we want a food-secured African continent. We want to create jobs. We want to economically integrate the continent, and we are using this opportunity, a first of its kind, even for MasterCard Foundation in terms of financing that they always do. And then we think out of this we can get more lessons to be able to drive other activities in other sectors. The
forum is expected to chart practical solutions to unlock the full potential of the fisheries sector and ensure its benefits are shared more equitably among Africa's youth and women. Rachel Mumba for Diamond News.
Well, those are the business news stories we had for you this evening. But let's take a look at the money markets. Well, for the money markets, as of the end of business day today, the 12th of August 2025, the United States dollar was buying at 23 kwacha and 02 ngwe, and it was selling at 23 kwacha 42 ngwe. These are the average commercial rates of the two currencies between the Zambian kwacha and the United States dollar. Now, time for us to take a look at construction commodities. Well, for the construction commodities, here are some of the commodities we have for you today, and we're starting with the Makita 18-volt rechargeable hammer drill, and it is 18 millimeters SDS plus body and the case, and it's going at 7,038 kwacha. This is how much you might need to spend on this particular hammer drill. But we also have another commodity when it comes to construction business, and this is a new 1.5 ton rated capacity Typhoon electric forklift lifter, and this is the 3-stage, which is going at 262,172 kwacha for ngwe. This is how much you might need to spend to get yourself this particular fork lifter. And these are the construction commodities brought to you by the Zambia National Building Society, ZMBS. Now, time for us to take a look at the food items. For the food items, we start off with beef. 1 kg of beef is going to cost you 110 kwacha, while 2 kg of sugar is going between 67 and 70 kwacha, while 1 kg is in between 35 and 37 kwacha. For flour, 2.5 kg is going at 89 kwacha, while 5 kg is going between 175 and 190 kwacha. For a tray of eggs, 95 and 115 kwacha, in between that range. For cooking oil, 2.5 liters, is in between 164 and 180 kwacha, while 5 liters is in between 260 and 300 kwacha. Talking about Millie Meal breakfast, 10 kg is going between 130 and 150, while 25 kg is in between 260 and 310. For raw Millie Meal, it's a little different. For 10 kg, it's going at 100 and 120, but for 25 kg, it's in between 225 and 240 kwacha. Those are for the food items. Now time for us to shift our attention to the non-food items. So to start off with the toilet pepper, 10 rolls is going at 85 kwacha, while 175 grams of toothpaste is between 37 and 40 kwacha. And now for a bar of multi-purpose soap, the prices are between 35 and 45 kwacha, while for washing powder, 500 grams is between 40 and 45 kwacha, 1.5 kg is in between 115 and 125 kwacha, while 3.5 kg is in between 220 and 265 kwacha. For a bar of bathing soap, it's going between 19 and 47 kwacha, while 750 ml of liquid hand wash is going at 45 kwacha. It doesn't have a range, but these are the approximate prices of these particular items for the food and the non-food items, not forgetting the construction commodities too. But that is what concludes the business news update for tonight. After this, we'll continue with the Diamond News Desk at 8.
Business News was brought to you by Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank. Zambia Industrial Commercial Bank, making tomorrow possible.
Mulenga for giving us the stories that were making business news this evening. Let's continue with more stories on the news desk this evening, with our story taking us all the way to Sanangombe, where farmers in that ward in Solwezi district are storing maize in their homes due to the absence of the Food Reserve Agency functional satellite depots and rising transport costs. In an interview with Diamond Media, a farmer, Matthews Livingandolo, says transportation fees to the nearest depot in Central Business District stand at about 2,000 kwacha for 20 bags or less. He adds that the high costs have forced some farmers to store maize at home, while others have left it in their fields. In a check by Diamond TV, the Diamond TV at a satellite depot site in the ward found that construction works have been abandoned for years with no indication of resumption. Meanwhile, efforts to obtain a comment from Northwestern Province Agricultural Coordinator Muyubo Shimabale were unsuccessful by broadcast time.
Announced the increment of satellite depots across the country. Farmers in Sandangombe ward of Solwezi district are raising concerns over what they call an inadequate supply of satellite depots to handle their maize.
Bantu transportation even 1,000 or 2,000 give the mfuko na ene nangwa 10 nangwa 20 they are charging 2,000 transportation for you to take the maize to the depot pono villager pono wakwensha wabe mambo ange wapotesha kafacha kamwena mune mari yonse yapi transportation
diche tunakulomba ko ku government yatutiri kuruwe anakutwira chachu wahe nawe letenu kabaga ku food reserve chidi chachu wahe mwana tunateri kulanisha muronga hiya kuda yetu iranga kukara ho neye aturekerera cho cheni nawo tutwarenga ku Solwezi nishindo tukuwani namu kosi.
Raising worries about storage and fair pricing, farmers say the shortage of functional satellite depots coupled with high transportation cost is forcing them to keep maize in their homes or even in their fields.
Twaromba kafumende wetu pakuamba yuke njimiye ngani so tudina mataba avura mu mazubo wetu mifuko 20 mifuko 10 so twakankarwa monka motu ambira amwani twakankarwa amwani kutwara mu town twakankarwa
lomba ko tumwani skelo betu letera konka kuno paipi pako no bena ngendero
Another concern raised is the perception of unfair buying practices by depot officers.
Baba bazimu fisipo babena kuikara tukeba na kuibapimina kuma scale ne bana kupiminako ababura mu fisipo bana kutwara ma 200 bags 300 bags so ketu ayukane kana pakwambabe bashepo atweba tuzimu fisipo kuitupimina wukizine keba pimine ko babura mu fisipo kana kikaki nakumweka pano ketu languruke namba ma corruption anakuingiranye kino inatwe kina kwiitukumishamwa ne nobe banjimi bazimu fisipo.
A check at one of the satellite depot sites in the ward has had construction works abandoned for years with no signs of resumption.
Satellite depot izimu zishinga fuma mitutu kuja kwa mami pakachi popa. Weitunga almost kampapitani 5 years but imeka fopo malata peuru ne bebi leka tucha ikala ko kwipi na ate banzimi bazimu sana ombe wadi. Palabe kireka tube kishatu byonkabya. Minwate tuloka bakana kusenda kutwala konka ku government kokwa.
Meanwhile, in a telephone interview with Northwestern Provincial Agriculture Coordinator Myowo Shimawale, says government is seriously looking to the administrative challenges to ensure that satellite depots are stationed to areas where farmers are experiencing challenges to sell their produce.
It's of course that the ministry is urgently at headquarters is urgently looking at this because of course once you delay, you know that those delays, of course, farmers are stressed. They may end up selling their maize to other buyers at a loss, at a cheaper price, and so on. So the matter is being urgently looked at through headquarters.
Mlenga Bwalia, Diamond News, Solwezi, Northwestern Province.
You're watching the Diamond News Desk at 8 with me, Tapio Ngoma. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more stories. Welcome back. You're watching the Diamond News Desk at 8 with me, Tapiwa Ngoma. Government says the country requires about 34.7 billion United States dollars between 2023 and 2035 to fully implement its National Adaptation Plan. Minister of Green Economy and Environment Mike Mposha says the country has not been spared from the devastating effects of climate change, describing it as one of the most pressing threats to the socio-economic development of the country. And United Nations Development Programme Resident Representative Dr. James Wakiaga says millions worldwide have benefited from NAP interventions, which have strengthened resilience, improved livelihoods, created income opportunities, and enhanced access to climate information for disaster preparedness. Zambia is currently hosting the 10th Global National Adaptation Plan Conference, focusing on advancing global strategies to address climate change.
Global National Adaptation Plan Expo being held under the theme Innovations in the NAP Process. The meeting is aimed at enhancing global strategies to strengthen resilience against climate change, which Minister of Green Economy and Environment Mike Mposha says remains one of the most pressing threats to Zambia's socio-economic development.
Destruction caused by the drought affected 84 out of our 116 districts in the country, and 9.8 million out of our 20 million people, with 6.6 million needing humanitarian assistance. As a result of the said drought, our agricultural production was slashed by about half.
And Director of the Adaptation Division at the UNFCCC, Yusuf Nassef, highlighted the successes of the NAP approach under the CANCAM adaptation framework.
Millions have confronted food and water insecurity, and this underscores the urgency of moving from planning to action.
And Ambassador Aidao Suarez Barbosa, representing the least developed countries expert group, LEG, emphasized that for these plans to be effective, they must be supported by scientific evidence.
Inclusive of all stakeholders, aligned with development objectives and supported by robust systems for monitoring, evaluation, and learning.
Meanwhile, UNDP resident representative Dr. James Wagaiga added that climate financing facilities have been critical in making these interventions possible.
Supported by FAO, UNESCO, UNITA, the Copperbelt University, and the University of Zambia, the first NDC represents the largest investment in climate education in Zambia, aiming to reach over 2 million beneficiaries by the year 2030.
And Lusaka Mayor Chilando Shtangala welcomed delegates to the capital, urging them to explore Zambia's natural beauty and cultural heritage. Elfie Mwale Shampande, Diamond News.
Thank you, Elfie, for that story. That swiftly leads us to the end of the bulletin this evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. We continue with the rest of the viewing this evening on Diamond TV. You can also follow us on our social media platforms to catch up on these stories and much more. From all of us here, thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Tapu Ngoma, and as always, it's always a pleasure bringing you these stories. Catch you tomorrow on the Diamond News Desk at 6. Good evening.